Welcome to Fargo, the officially unofficial podcast for Fargo on Hulu. I'm Jim.
I'm A.Ron.
It's also on FX. We're talking about Season 5, Episode 4, Insolubilia, which is a hard word to say, but it's basically just another name for the Liar's Paradox. A.Ron, what do you think of this episode?
I think this is the first episode of Fargo this season that I actually liked, and like on balance, I wasn't like, oh, I got problems here, I got problems there. I thought it, other than maybe Holly being going a little too far, trying to amp up the tension in certain things to where I go from being teased and excited and titillated to just get on with it,
Yeah, I want my enema, damn it, and I've been waiting 4 hours.
You're right. Some people don't know how to wait their turn, and I'm one of those people. I got 6 feet of intestine getting ripped out of me tomorrow. Come on, let's get with this Home Alone sequence. You've been promising it all season.
Yeah.
I like that. I liked if they're going to be archetypal and biblical with some of the stakes this season. I think that's an interesting thing for Roy to square off against. I really like the things they're doing with debt. I really liked Munch's soliloquy about what freedom means.
What it cost, yeah.
Got a little bit of Raylan Givens, some Roy Givens action at the end of this episode.
Okay. Yeah.
And I felt like Roy's starting to feel like a real character too, which yeah. He's a weird character and a guy I don't like, but he's starting to feel like, okay, I'm starting to see how he fits into this world. I'm guessing from your surprised reaction, this is another one that didn't really connect with you.
No, I thought you were more positive on the first 2 episodes than I. Apparently, I'm misremembering that because I thought the last one was the only one you really didn't like.
I just remember thinking like I thought this was supposed to be funny and lighthearted and not dark and so it's like I'm saying this is, I don't know whether I finally got calibrated or this is just better suited for me the Fargo watcher. But yeah, I like this episode. I have quibbles with this episode, but yeah, I quite liked it.
I was a little let down by the opening sequence the first time I watched it, because I think, like you said, the calibration issues. I was expecting Home Alone. I was expecting some real fun here, and they went much more for the horror angle. And that's kind of been the story of, like, why I haven't been totally settling into this season yet. But I think I'm getting there. I think I'm still incredibly confused by the 500 years earlier thing. I still don't like that at all, but we kind of don't need to dwell on that in this episode, because old Munch is kind of, he's being a weirdo, but he's also being a normal human being, not necessarily a 500-year-old entity. So that stuff, I'm also digging the themes, what they're doing with the debt, because, boy, it's everywhere. And even in old Munch's speech here, there's a lot of, he's talking, about the cost of freedom, but that cost is being paid by certain people who, the other side of that is accruing some debt that eventually might need to be paid. And I think that's kind of where they're going with, like, the Lorraine character. But we'll see. We'll see exactly what they do with that. But yeah, once I settled in that second watch, I definitely appreciated the opening sequence a lot more. I was having more fun with it, I guess, not having a lot of expectations. So maybe I just need to relax, let this season do what it's going to do, and then I'll start enjoying it a lot more.
Yeah, I at this point, I'm not even sure if Munch is literally 500 years old. I mean, we talked about this last episode, and I also, after I've thought about it more for a week, again, this is not my favorite flavor of Fargo, but as long as it doesn't fuck up the stakes, as long as there's not some kind of unearned resolution to something that hinges on the fact that old Munch is actually a supernatural character. And with rare exception, that is the case with the supernatural on Fargo. It's stuff that's like, it's the Coens like to inject this kind of magical reality into the borders of this world is wide and wonderful, and weird stuff happens. It's inexplainable, kind of like Jules in Pulp Fiction. Like occasionally you're just going to have an according to Hoyle miracle, and you might not have another one in your entire life, and you might never see or hear of one, but it might happen to you. And as long as it's that kind of stuff, and it doesn't undercut what they're trying to do, I think it'll be fine. Roy's the type of dude that like talks to a life-sized crucifix of Jesus and calls him partner, and wants him to mosey up and be his co-pilot for this one. Like, it's kind of appropriate to have the devil cover himself in shit and scrawl a bunch of profane spells on your daughter's bedroom wall if you're kind of rolling that way. Like, that's kind of secretly what Roy wants, right?
Yeah, I'd suppose so. That could be a sign that he's on the right track.
Yeah. If the Lord's backing him against a battle against evil, then he must be doing right. So
see himself as like a Job character, right?
Yeah. It's interesting that this thing is about, like you said, the liar's paradox. The liar's paradox, of course, if someone comes and says to you something along the lines of everything I say is a lie, oh my God, well, if that's true, then you're telling me the truth. But if you're telling me the truth, then you can't be saying all lies. But if you're and that's when if you're a robot in Star Trek, the smoke starts rolling out your ears, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure exactly what the fit is. I mean, obviously, lots of people are lying. Lots of people are taking their version of the truth. Roy, my deputy got in a vehicle accident, and I found this old Munch character who's bragging about killing a state. He's like the Adam Savage quote from MythBusters, unironically. I'm going to
substitute my own reality.
Yeah.
Reject your reality, substitute my own.
Substitute my own, yeah. And Dot tries to do it, and Wilt calls her out. It's like, that's not a thing. You can't have your own version of reality. That's something that, unfortunately, we all have to share. But it's like, that's not a lie. That's just someone lying. It's, they're not... Dorothy's not lying. Well... Yeah, I'm not sure if because usually there's a deeper connection there. This seems like it's almost an Alanis Morissette non sequitur. Non sequitur.
Yeah. No, I understand what you mean there. I'm not really picking up on exactly how the liar's paradox connects either, but there is something there with the idea of these characters substituting lies for truth and feeling like there is no truth. And I don't know exactly how the liar's paradox gets you there, because the liar's paradox is about a contradiction, right? It's not about the nature of truth or lies. It's about the inherent contradiction in a particular statement. So I don't know exactly.
Can I also say I spent, 20, 30 minutes reading about different solutions to the liar's paradox and whatnot. And sometimes philosophy gets into some really dumb shit. And this seems like one of those things.
Oh, yeah? I didn't go down the rabbit hole as deep as you did, apparently, but
like
I could
see
it.
The idea, I mean... And I guess they would be like, well, you're not taking the problem seriously. But, like, in real life, if someone came up and said everything that I say is a lie, well, they're just fucking with you, man.
Yeah.
They're just doing some verbal, it's like if someone come in and said, oh, you can have a grammatically correct sentence in English language as buffalo, 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 buffalo. And be like, how's this possible? Well, it's a word trick. It's a riddle. It's Sally sells seashells by the seashore for people with IQs 140 and above. I don't get it. I can't believe how much fucking ink has been spilt.
Yeah, that's the thing. All the way back to the Dark Ages, man. I mean, in antiquity, it's thousands of years old. People are writing about this. Aristotle's writing about it, right?
Right.
Which, he's thinking about the world and the nature of existence and all that, and it makes sense that he would be thinking about it. But yeah, I'm with you. It's like, okay, this is a quirk of an inherently imprecise construct of human beings, which is language, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there are logical fallacies that can be extracted from that, but isn't that simply because we have done a bad job defining the thing.
I agree. It's like putting your fingers into a Chinese finger trap and being like, I cannot get myself out. All I can do is withdraw my hands from each other because that's how you get out of a situation. And alas, it tightens me. It's like, well, you fucking put yourself into it. And also, all you got to do is put your fingers together, you dummy.
Yeah.
I get with this sometimes I when I get into like simulation theory or brain in a vat type stuff. There's a little bit, but that's it's like that's the thing. Is like once someone decided there's like a brain in a vat, why does anyone waste time on the liar's paradox? Just go right to the how do you know if anything's real, man?
Yeah, I mean Aristotle was writing about that too. He just didn't have the idea of a brain in a vat. Anyway, I'm with you. We'll see how this stuff all connects, but maybe we should get into the recap.
Let's do it, man.
All right, Gator's crew makes their way inside Dot's house. We're picking up right where we left off last episode. They trigger her security system, but they fight through it. It's not as violent a security system as I was expecting, at least not initially. Eventually, Wayne makes a panicked decision and gets electrocuted unconscious, setting the house on fire in the process. Dot and Scotty have to haul him onto the roof and toss him off to escape Gator. Eventually, the authorities show up and scare off Gator's crew as Dot watches her house burn.
So, like I said, I thought that once the scene got going, it flowed pretty well, and I was pretty engaged. There's like 5 minutes of lead up that seemed excessive to me, where I know like Hitchcock is like, well, it's not about the bomb exploded. It's about the audience knowing that there's a timer on the bomb. It's like, but Hitchcock, I don't know. I don't know if he'd spend like 5 minutes cutting from. But
well, it wasn't 5 minutes. It was 7 days. Is one of the problems.
What do you mean 7 days?
I mean, I've been waiting a week for this episode.
Oh, right.
And the tension was already built last episode.
Yeah, but it's like it's like room by room. This is a room that's going to be something into it. Nope. Oh, there's a pan in the oven. What's going to happen with that? Back upstairs. Oh, there's another shut door. This is the child. Surely it's going to be something. Oh, a guy's looking under the bed. There's going to be something there. No. There's another dark closet though. We can see and open up this door and it's a mirror and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, can this shit? And I start getting distressed. I'm like, we have gone through the majority of the house. There's no booby traps. Like, you did a bad job booby trapping, mama.
Yeah, I mean, the only booby traps we see are the two that go off, the window and the sledgehammer. But I'm sure there were
It's
more.
weird to like electrify the windows and whatnot, but you don't like the only thing that you've got to protect the main entrances at the doors is a sledgehammer trap that you yourself have to trigger because the bad guys never are going to. And
and a light bulb on the back door just to alert you, not even to keep them out.
Yeah, like I'm like, when I saw that, I'm like, oh, this is going to be like Kevin when he's got the staircases covered in tar. That's like, oh, that's he's gonna, Joe Creer's gonna catch that light bulb thinking he's doing something. That's just gonna set him up for the 16-inch nail going through his foot, right? No, that was just supposed to drop an alert her to their presence. So
yeah, I definitely found myself going, I wish there were more booby traps. And none of them actually go off, right? It's not like this is an automated defense system. Just waiting for the burglars to stumble into it. It's things that Dot has to actively make happen, or things that like
don't really
Wayne
work.
activates. So
like let me ask you this: why the oven? Why the pan left in the oven?
I think it's confusion. I think it's to disorient the attackers, which I thought worked really well. Like the lights and the sound and everything. And they're in an unfamiliar house. She knows the lay of the land. I think that was smart.
Was all that triggered? Like, was the smoke alarm rigged to like cut off the lights?
It must have been, yeah.
Okay, maybe that makes sense then. I did wonder too why she wouldn't just call the cops as soon as the oh man, I know.
I don't think she
doesn't want
wants
the cops to come there.
Mm-hmm.
Because the cops are what ultimately make the bad guys leave in this case. The the fire burning the entire house up.
Uh-huh.
But you're right, more traps because I was watching the guys tiptoe around the drum kit. I'm like, man, you got a drum kit right there. You could have done something with. Like, rig the cable to they trip over it and it just knocks that thing over, makes all kinds of rackets. And
I like the rope ladder and the chute. That was pretty good.
The rope ladder and the chute was a really nice gag. The pepper spray / throw you down the staircase was an effective combo.
Yeah.
The sledgehammer was pretty gruesome.
Yeah, that's brutal. There were a couple of times where I'm looking. I keep wanting to call him Steve Gator.
Yeah.
Because there are a couple of times where he's going after her, and I think he's even underestimating her in this scene. And you'll see it later when he goes back to Roy, or tries to go back to Roy, and he's saying, "Yeah, she's a tiger. She's not a mouse." Yeah. But she almost takes him out a couple of times. Once with that bat, which Steve, Stranger Things. Bat with nails in it. It's all really good.
When he picks it up briefly and it's like, it's Excalibur in King Arthur's hands.
Totally. And then there's one time where she picks up a gun and just starts shooting at him, and he's like taken aback that there's actual gunfire happening and his life is in danger here. Yeah. I guess he just totally underestimated her. He didn't believe old Munch about her being a tiger.
Yeah. Did you think that there's a little bit? Because obviously there's the Steve aspect of Stranger Things, but I thought with the leather jacket and whatnot, and like the strategic kind of duct tape here and there, I thought they were kind of aping Negan style from The Walking Dead.
Okay, I can see
like
it.
a short cropped hair and, yeah, I thought he was cutting kind of like that kind of figure, and they have been referencing zombies a lot in this season, so I thought maybe that's another subtle one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Wayne, I thought it was perfect when Wayne gets electrocuted in this scene with him as a zombie. He's in the makeup still, so he's all pale, and he it makes him, tenses up and just falls backward, and he might be dead. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, fucking poor Wayne. Oh, man. He's, oof. Literally down bad this episode.
Yeah.
When she rolls him off the roof. There's a couple things I thought people got off a little easy. The sledgehammer person looks like they got incapacitated, which is fair enough. I don't see how that guy literally tanked this toilet tank lid to the head and didn't get his skull crushed in. Do you know how fucking heavy those lids are, dude?
Oh yeah, I've lifted a lid or two from a toilet.
And she put it down on his head with like blunt force trauma.
Yeah, go mom. As Scotty says.
And that was after she had almost guillotined him with the attic ladder. So I don't know. I felt like her body count should have been a little bit higher.
Yeah, who that has seen Home Alone would ever pull that cord? I would never pull that cord. Or if I did, I'd pull it standing to the side. I don't know, and I'd probably be like Marv, and that's exactly what he wanted me to do, is stand to the side and pull it.
Yeah, I thought that's what they were going with a few things, where it was going to be, this is just soften you up for the main blow, but it never kind of panned out that way. But I think this is a much funner Home Alone, because the first one in the first episode, that's more of a subversion of Fargo, the original movie, than it was a Home Alone montage. This is homage. This is definitely the good stuff. What did you think of your interaction with Gator?
That's when I knew that they really don't want to harm her. They just want to bring her back, right? Like when he takes off his mask, I was really surprised that he did that, A, and B, it shows that he's like, cause he could have got her right then and there. He had the drop on her, I think.
What do you think about? Does this impact any of the theories? Because we've had what I consider kind of an out there theory that Gator is Nadine's son.
There is a moment in here that I thought the same. I can't remember the exact line, but there's some mention of a mother in this.
He calls her Mama. But
Does he call
kind
it?
of
Okay.
like in the way that happens in the South or the Midwest, where like once
Maybe.
once a woman becomes a mother, they're kind of mama, just like the dad becomes papa or daddy or.
Maybe. I'll keep an eye.
But it's a
on it.
weird thing. It'd be a weird thing, like the way he used it'd be weird if he was her actual. I didn't get mother son at all.
At all? Wow.
Nah.
Okay.
No.
I'm keeping an eye on it. I was really concerned for Wayne this entire time after he gets electrocuted because I'm like, well, this fire's going to burn the house down. They're not trying to stop it, let alone if they could stop it at all. And they're on the roof. What are they going to do? He's passed out. He's not waking up. She just rolls him right off the rooftop.
Yeah, as I was thinking, it's like, okay, am I going to buy Juno Temple like carrying this guy
Muscling him down
fireman
the
style
trellis?
down? It's like, I don't know that I buy that. And I'm like, well, what
No.
if she gets like some Christmas tree lights and kind of rigs up a harness and like lowers him down? I'm like, I don't know if
Okay.
I believe the time. And as I was processing that, she just rolls them off like a Lincoln log, and I'm like, well, okay, I guess.
Better
I guess
injured
you'd
than
probably
dead.
survive that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's worth it.
Because he's certainly going to die if you leave him in the room in the fire. Who knows what Gator's going to do to him. So, yeah, as long as he doesn't land on his head, he's probably going to be okay.
Yeah, she did it about as well as you could, I think. And that last shot of the house burning while she looks at it, I feel like this is her new life burning up, right? This is it. This is a moment where it's gotten out of her control. It's too big to hide anymore. And
But
she knows
she's still going to try. She's still going to try her
at the
level
hospital
best.
later. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, the fire department's on the way. I think the cop who comes in and alerts Whit and Indira about this later says, yeah, they're investigating what happened. They're going to see that this was not accidental.
Maybe.
I mean, there are bullet holes in the walls. The windows are wired with electrical with electrical wiring. Like, this wasn't natural causes here.
But they said, so like, first of all, I want to put my real life hat on and say, the forensics teams of fire departments are quite good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's shocking how well they can sleuth out how a fire begins, even with a surprising amount of destruction cloaking it. You'd think a house burnt down to the foundations, it'd be impossible to trigger, but I'll be damned, they can do that a lot of times. I don't know that the writing team of Fargo knows that, and I'm wondering if them having the captain come up and be like, "Oh, gee, there's a 5 alarm at the Lion estate," if that's them saying that that's such a hot inferno conflagration, all the evidence is going to burn up. There's not going to be any walls with bullets in them. There might be some wires, but Dot did said there's some faulty Christmas wiring, so I wonder, because I think in real life, no fucking way you get away with this. No fucking shot. But I wonder if Holly thinks that making it be a 5 alarm fire, whatever the fuck that means in a small town, 5 fire departments converging for one residential fire, or if he's just saying it was a hell of a fire. I wonder if they're going to say that, like, wow, the evidence is all burnt up.
I guess my question would be, where do the cops go from here if the evidence is all burned up?
Well, I mean, they've got her at the scene of a major crime. Like, they don't have to, it's not her word versus, they got her on tape
video,
doing some stuff. So, I mean, it feels like she could be
But she could
compelled.
just stonewall. She could continue to stonewall.
Couldn't
Just
they
say,
charge her with
no.
a crime like obstruction of justice? Like, you won't even, like, you were there. You have information about this. You have, I guess you could plead the fifth.
Mm-hmm. Or forget conveniently. I mean, there are many ways that she can continue to stonewall. I guess I'm looking for this story to actually get really going. Like, I mean, it has been going, but it's a one-sided thing here. I guess I'm looking for the other shoe to drop.
Because if she's taken into police custody, then I don't think Roy is going to get his militia together and, like, bust her out of the prison. Yeah. Like something out of Banshee or something. I don't think that's going to happen. So she has to be kind of like in the wind, because if one side or the other finally catches her, I think we're in season mode, and a little early for that. So I agree. I don't know where they're going, but it seems like she's going to try to keep holding on to this delusion as long as she can. And
and her family supporting it, and
with Wayne kind of being incapacitated, that because he's the other person that could directly contradict, and give evidence, talk about information and things. So if he's
I don't know what the status of Wayne is.
His brain's still scrambled. Who knows?
He's got the brain scramblies. Yeah.
My wife. He's a Borat machine now.
Oh God, is that what's happening in his head? Just Borat 24/7?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yep. Just all unitards and.
Great. All right. So we talked about almost a third of the episode here with that first scene. Let's move over to Roy talking to Jesus about the coming crossroads, and he asks him for his help in their hour of need. Then he goes back to his house where he finds an open door and muddy footprints. So he grabs a gun, he starts a sweep, and in his children's room, he finds some kind of symbol scrawled on the wall. In blood or mud or shit or something. I don't know what it's scrawled in. Probably all of the above.
Why not all three? Yeah, why not everything?
But it's old Munch has left his calling card. There's a warning.
Yeah, I saw some people trying to decide what that symbol is. Like, I didn't see anybody making much of it, and I don't.
Seems invented.
I mean, it's arcane runery, you know.
Yeah.
If you could decipher it, it means
it's Jules
luck.
saying no. It's just some cold shit to say to somebody before you kill him, right? I don't know what it means.
Right. I mean, it might mean like luck, moon, death, but what the fuck does that going to mean in this in the context of the season? Who knows? But I like this. I thought it's interesting. Did you think it's interesting that Roy is addressing Jesus like an equal? He's not like my heavenly Father. I humbly beseech you on my knees. He's just like open body language, arms not crossed, facing up there, and like, well, old friend, we're in the shit again. Like,
well, if Jesus is they call him the king among kings.
I was about to say that they do position Roy as an arrogant king. So, but I think they're reinforcing that. Like, this is not what did Sean Connery say in the Last Crusade? This is not the penitent man that kneels before God. This is a man who doesn't think he's committed sins. Doesn't think he has anything to forgive. He just wants prosperity, Jesus to bless him.
Yeah, I take it this old Baylor Mays guy he's talking about is a previous case that he worked on, or it's something that haunts him apparently from his past.
Do you think he literally says that he saw a dark figure crouching behind him, or is this like in a Russ Cole kind of way?
I mean, I assume that, but I don't know what Fargo's take on that is, so who knows?
Like was he speaking poetically? Is like this? I've fought evil before, and that's evil, and I could, metaphorically see the devil whispering in his ear, or are we actually talking about the Midnight Man? I looked up the Midnight Man. I don't think that's like a real established thing of lore. That's not like a traditional name for the devil. It's a 2016 movie. It's a song, but nothing that like ties it to any kind of representation of the devil. So it feels like Roy's kind of got like his own modern take on Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
He's filed a few serial numbers off. He's inventing some of his own lore.
Yeah. Midnight Man with a serpent tongue. All right. Let's go over to the hospital. Scotty and Dot are in the lobby. Scotty asks about what happened tonight, and Dot works with her to make up a story about what happened to Wayne. Tries to reassure her that they're good people and bad things don't happen to good people.
This is a wild scene. This is Dot scrambling mixing her daughter's memories like she does Bisquick. Just aggressively for two. Like it is. This is not good parenting. This is really abusive, crippling shit.
Gaslighting, all of the above.
And encouraging the child to take to take a part of it, and like making her feel responsible. You're complicit now. We're in this together. This is some real bad shit, man. And it's all at the expense of the father too. So it's also isolating. You know, it's like us girls are in this thing together. Dad's kind of a dumb clumsicle, and you know we got to protect him, and nobody else will, honey. So you got, and there's a lot of like, it feels like she started channeling Roy at the end there. Like all this stuff she's talking about, the wicked stick to the darkness, where the us good people get to stay in the light. That's Roy talking, right?
And if we follow the rules, the reward is the kingdom of heaven. Like, this is righteous. This is something ordained by God. It's fucked up.
Do you think that maybe Dot was like a child bride in some kind of weird rural fundamentalist splinter of Christianity, and these were the things she was told as a little girl to groom her to be the bride of someone like Roy, and then she woke up and escaped, and now she's regressing, or she's looking back to those toolkits to try to save her daughter?
Could be. Yeah. I mean, they're useful tools in a situation where you need them, but also they're pretty damaging.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of like that Vietnam contradiction. You had to destroy the village to save the village from communism. Like, I'm having to destroy my daughter to save my daughter. Ugh, it was gross. This is a real gross scene.
Yeah, I'm curious to see Scotty in the future, because Scotty seems cool, but yeah, it's stuff like this that's gonna really twist her up.
She's only 9 years old, man. There's still plenty of time to fuck that up.
I know. Plenty of time. So Whit and Indira review the security cam footage of the gas station attack, but old Munch is not in it. The lights went out. They didn't get him. It's a shame because they had that exact angle too. They would have got him. They're puzzled as to why Dot would pretend this didn't happen. And then the captain comes in and tells them there's a fire at the Lion House, and they rush off to investigate.
Yeah, I thought it was funny that Indira takes off like a shot. She's got her keys, her coat already on. She's barreling for the door, and Wilt has to like grab his stuff, get on his crutches, limp after her. I thought that was some kind of, but it's one of those insoluble things. Like, why would a person get this involved in his life and death thing, and then just act this nakedly heroic, and then be like, oh, none of it, this didn't happen. That wasn't me. Like, what the.
Yeah, no, it's a puzzle to be solved. We have that puzzle piece. They don't.
Yeah, we do. But I will say this: like, the longer this goes on, the more of like, why aren't we just bringing the police in? Like, is she somewhat culpable for some crimes that she helped Roy commit, and then got better? Because like, why can't you just go with the story of like, I was in this abusive cult, sex slavery type of situation, and I fled from it, and now these mad people have found me, and I need protection. Like,
yeah, that's the thing that's changed here is she now knows that they've found her, and that should be, in my mind, the time when she says, okay, jig's up, now it's time to go to the authorities, but she's still stonewalling them. And I don't really
there's got to be either real or imagined culpability that would put her in prison or something if all the truth came out.
Or she's worried about her daughter. She doesn't want her daughter to view her as something other than like the image she's built as her mother. She doesn't want to lose this life she's constructed, but it's gone, man.
You don't think that she's convinced that no one can protect her from Roy? Because I'd have a hard time believing someone apparently as smart as Dot would think that the most powerful sheriff in North Dakota could do shit to her in like a Minnesota state prison.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, but she might be paranoid enough to think that.
Yeah, and also if he has, I don't know, if he's got the connections inside the prison, if he's like works the Aryan Brotherhood the right way, maybe he could. Maybe she is touchable. I don't know. But that would start to strain my credibility and my belief. Because it feels like Roy's besieged right now. It doesn't feel like he could splash out on that kind of operation, even if he could. So,
yeah, he's not showing it. I mean, if that's true, he doesn't really feel like a man who is under fire here. Because with the FBI, he doesn't take the FBI seriously, which is strange, but mean,
I mean,
occasionally
he's worried enough
you
to
get
murder
it.
a kid. He's worried enough to murder a kid and trying to blame that on old Munch so he can get all this pressure to go away.
Yeah.
It feels
But
like it's like, yeah, it
feels
isn't
manageable
quite out
to
of
him.
hand, but it's starting to slip through the fingers, you know?
Yeah, I can see it. And he's probably pretty pissed at Gator right now for not getting the job done.
I will say one thing that a person pointed out on Reddit that I haven't been able to stop thinking about is that John Hamm has not raised his voice once this season, which subconsciously gives him a huge aura of power and control. Because even as shit's going sideways, even as his son's disappointing him, even as his men are being killed, he's just always that. He's Don Draper pitching the Kodak carousel, man.
I was gonna say
That's this tobacco's not cancerous. It's toasted. Like he's got that same just unflappable calm, and it is giving him, like you mentioned, like I don't think he's embattled. Holy shit, I think he's super embattled, but he doesn't seem like it.
Sure. I don't think I've ever seen John Hamm raise his voice. I'm trying to think through Mad Men. Like, when would I have seen him get?
Surely he
That
did in like
animated.
Baby Driver when he was like a psychotic, supervillain. Like he had, but you're right. He doesn't scream a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess his version of getting excited and screaming is
He yelled at Peggy when he said like that's what the money's for, right? I think he raised his voice. Surely,
perhaps. Yeah, but it's so rare.
it is.
I guess it
very
would
rare.
stand out more. It should stand out
Yeah.
more because it's so rare. But yeah, you don't see him do that very often.
Yeah, it's it definitely gives him a mystique.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go over to Indira getting a call from a debt collector as Lorraine explains to a journalist about how the calls from her company supply in-debt Americans with what they really want, which is not a handout, but an opportunity to fix the problem themselves. And then she's told that Wayne's house is on fire.
Yeah, we at the individual level, we're all about personal accountability. If you slide up to the corporate level,
That all
there's
goes
a lot
away.
more there's a lot more handouts, a lot more like what the hell were we supposed to do? What do you want us to do? Go bankrupt? Want to lay off all these employees? You better bail. Yeah, it's
Oh,
a
yeah,
double standard. I think that more and more Americans are kind of waking up to it. That like maybe we shouldn't feel embarrassed to take things when we need them because that's certainly how the other half lives.
They do, and
the
this
other
is
half of the 1%.
This is what I was talking about when I said there's a debt accruing on the other side of this, right? Like they are
Yeah.
paying for their own freedom with so many other people's misery. Eventually, that's going to come. The bill's going to come due on that.
And as the freedoms become more and more ephemeral, like I just want to be able to do whatever I want all the time without any restrictions. When other people are starving, other people are dying because of lack of medical care. That's the kind of balance that does have to eventually get reconciled in the old books.
Yeah, when you realize you're living under the rule of kings, and you have no freedoms, it becomes a problem for the kings.
Did you get the? Is there a possibility that Indira that this is a targeted action? Because she's the lead investigator that they're trying to make kind of go away, and I kind of the way they juxtapose this, I think they're telling us that the Lion Company is there's because she does owe the debt, so debt collectors could be after her, but I do feel like there's the timing a suspect of it.
Yeah, these are specialists. A.Ron, debt collectors have a bad reputation. These are debt help specialists. I forget what they call them.
True. It's true. She feels humiliated, and they're giving her dignity back.
Yeah.
And that's I know we have a significant number of non-Americans listening, but like, it's very hard for I think Europeans and people living in the British Isles and whatnot to understand the fact that you could get hurt on your job, you could get your finger degloved, and that's your problem, man. Now I think at work there's like workman's comp and stuff like that, but broadly speaking,
Well, at certain types of work, not all of them.
yeah. Yeah, broadly speaking, if you get hurt or you get injured, you get sick, it is your fucking responsibility, and everything is just god awful expensive. Like you call you gotta call an ambulance, take it to the hospital. That's going to be at least $1,000, probably upwards of $5,000, just to take the ride to the hospital.
I was shocked that medical bill was only $2,600.
I did for a degloved finger. I'm like, where the hell did they go? I need that. I need to be in that insurance network. I need to move to Minnesota.
She's a cop, so I'm sure her insurance is fairly good, but that seems like a small amount to pay for such a gruesome injury.
Yeah. Maybe that's why his swing's so shit.
He's got half a finger.
Yeah, I wonder what's the most important finger for golfing.
I don't know. The thumb. I mean, if you can't grip the club,
that's
you
true.
can't swing it.
That's true.
But the thumb is not a finger.
But you got to link the pinky and the forefinger, and that's like your right pinky and your left forefinger.
Really? You don't have to do that. I don't think Tiger Woods is out there.
I mean, hell, you just grab that thing like a baseball bat and take it for a spin. Do what you want out there. For Happy Gilmore, get a running start. You know, you can do that everywhere in the world except for Top Golf to throw you out for that shit. But yeah, go nuts.
Yeah, I mean, there's inevitable questions that come after, giving them an opportunity to fix it themselves. What if they can't? What if they can't fix it themselves? Then what?
So the Lions have made a lot of money. Is there any signs in the scene that they're embattled a bit themselves? Because I noticed this Forbes interview is combative. He's expressing skepticism that you could make $1.5 billion out of essentially written off bad debt. Which either
if
they
this
are
is happening in 2019, they would be embattled.
They are either putting an inhuman amount of pressure on very poor people and wringing it out of them, or they're cooking the books in some way.
I think it's the former. That seems to be the MO.
Okay. All right. I don't know. Like I said, if this, because I don't think Forbes gives a shit about them making money off breaking the backs of the poor. I think Forbes would give a shit if they are giving, the FTC invalid information about their books. Because that's some serious shit.
I mean, do you think the purpose of this interview... this isn't the Forbes person, also. I don't know who this is.
It isn't?
No. She says that when she gets to the hospital, she says to Dot, like, you fucked up my Forbes interview yesterday. I was supposed to have it be sitting down for 20 minutes with them. Like,
I thought what she said is you fucked up the makeup Forbes interview that I had to reschedule from yesterday because of the bullshit that you did. Like, this is the second time now she's had to interrupt this interview to go help out Dot.
Yeah, maybe she was speaking about interrupting that interview. I
which,
got the
if
vibe
true, that might
afterwards.
also explain the hostility that the reporter's kind of like, are you fucking with me? Are you not taking me seriously? And
yeah, this is the second time that we've tried this.
That's what happened a third.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. They definitely seem like... I don't know. I don't know if it's a false sense of security she has or an earned sense of security, but there are a lot of cracks showing, and mostly it's around Dot. I think her facade, the only time I've seen it slip is when she was talking to Dot in the kitchen, and Dot, started attacking her, and she had no response to that, really. But other than that, she seems pretty calm about everything. So yeah, she goes over to the hospital, starts trying to get Wayne the best care that money can buy. Of course, this is not a hotel, so she can't demand service. Indira and Whit show up to talk to Dot, but it's made difficult by Graves and Dorothy both denying reality.
What is the Saudi package?
I mean, you fly in the best doctors, you get round-the-clock nursing staff. I mean, what does the American medical system have to offer? Get us that. The best of the best.
Do you think that Graves actually gets this nurse fired? When she's like, have her fired. She's fired. For just saying, ma'am, this is not a restaurant. This is not a hotel. This is a hospital.
I can't tell yet how much of just a blowhard she is and how much power she actually has in this community. And she says she she's friends with one of the board of directors, and like she could get her fired. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, he's always this Graves guy's always going around like he's going to do something. Every time she tells him to do this or do that, he kind of like starts walking away and getting his cell phone out. Like, but I don't know how much is that to placate her.
And where's Dog the Bounty Hunter? Where's the guy from Vegas?
True.
I expected to see some of that this episode.
I guess that was early. Yeah, like maybe that's the night of that conversation. So maybe, I mean, it would take a while to get from Vegas to Minnesota. But have we got to the point where Wilt starts kind of sweating Dot? I thought this was a very interesting scene, that she is just desperate to keep this story going. You know, like no one's buying it. She understands is buying it, but she's trying to now like appeal to Minnesota nice ideas of, well, I've got my husband's side. You can't possibly ask me to leave that. I've got my daughter here. And see, like, as one by one those legs are kicked out from underneath her, and finally Wilt just sits down and is like, hey, I recognize you. I know you. And even if I didn't, we got videotape of you. And that line, with all due respect, we have our own reality.
It's not a thing.
That product should have expired like a decade ago. It's like, but yet it keeps getting worse. Like, there's unironically flat Earth people trying to colonize our social media to spread the lies that NASA and everybody else is in on the fact that, like, this was a joke when I was growing up. Like, the archetypal example of someone who has huffed their own farts and has lost brain cells as a result. You're going to get into flat Earth and moon landing and jet. Now it's like the lingua franca of this fucking country. It's wild. I don't know if Fargo's going to fix it, but
yeah, I don't even understand the cause. I don't understand the cause, let alone the solution.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just not wired that way to ever accept something so obviously ridiculous.
I feel like the cause, broadly speaking, is like a lot of people being asleep at the wheel for a generation or two, and you know, you wake up and like, oh my god, the flat earthers people have got their hands on the wheel. What's happening? But yeah. Other than that, it's a lot harder to draw the actual cause and effect here.
Well, I don't understand the cause to believe it. Not the cause to not have done anything about it, but the cause to believe it. Like, what makes a person who is otherwise not medically insane believe something like that?
It seems like that stuff is correlated with people who have very little control in their lives, and might, you know, feel like they've been passed by society, and they're not as and it gives them a feeling of specialness, like they have special knowledge. They are the ones clever enough to see through the wool that's being pulled over the entire world's eyes. So it appeals, it flatters their. You know, but like factually, it's like it's one of those things where it's like hard to reason someone out of something they didn't reason themselves into.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know, man. I will never understand.
But I'm on Team Wilt. This is just not how it works. You know, there's one reality we all share, and the people who deny it do so to their long-term detriment. Although it seems like you can make a lot of hay in the short term.
Yeah, it's kind of stymieing the investigation here. You know.
Yeah.
It's not entirely, because there is an objective reality that they're investigating, and they're finding out things through that objective reality. But boy, it's not helped by substituting your own reality.
This reminds me a lot. Were you familiar with that case that happened, I think it was just slightly pre-pandemic, where a woman faked her own abduction, like Gone Girl style, had an ex-boyfriend, like, you know, pick her up, and they staged a burglary, and then she lived at his house for like 3 months, and you know, the husband was like desperate to find her, and then she just turns up like on the side of the road wearing chains, and you know, she's got this wild story of these guys that took her and like tortured her and did all this stuff, and it turns out that like, yeah, her and his ex-boyfriend did all this stuff, and I watched a police recording of the final kind of like interrogation they did of her, where it's like she had her and her husband, and they're like just laying out. It's like, look, we know your stories, but the lengths that this woman went, and like they kind of did not. I wonder how much of this is like Holly's basing on that real life story, because the delusionalness, the delusionality, the depths of the delusion that Dot's suffering from remind me a lot of that, where it's just like she is just so desperate because she knows she's fucked up so hard. But that was just apparently a woman like bored and just wanting attention. There's something more going on with Dot.
Was there a charge after that? Was she charged with a crime? Cause
yeah, she's in. I think she's in jail
time?
right now. Yeah, like committing false police report, obstruction of justice.
Oh yeah, she's filing police reports, I suppose so. But what obstruction of what justice?
There
was no justice to ever be had.
I would argue that her husband and daughters, she put them through a mental ordeal.
Oh, I thought they were in on it. Okay.
No, the husband and his family was like, no, it's her and an ex concocted this plan to.
Oh, her and an ex. Okay, I thought it was her and her family concocted this plan.
No, no, they were
just gave police the runaround for 3 months.
And he even kind of sounded a little bit like Wayne on like the 911 calls and.
Wow.
Huh. Yeah. I'll have to, maybe I can't remember the name of the case. Maybe I'll look it up for next week, or I'm sure there's probably a lot of true crimers that might be familiar with it. But it's
I'm
a
sure there's a
thing.
podcast about it at this point.
Oh, has to, probably 17.
yeah. All right. Dot is told that Wayne's awake, and she goes to see him and tries to get their story straight, but he is, let's call it, in shock. He's speaking in single words. It doesn't. I don't know if any of what she's saying is getting through to him, except she's his wife. She apologizes to him and says she's gonna fix this. How?
Man, Wayne, that my wife, and the way he said it, like with slightly different inflections, and the final time, because I think at some level, like, I'm not sure if we're dealing with a locked-in situation where he's fully aware, but like the connection between brain and body is a little shaken, or if he's just extremely limited. But on some level, it's penetrating that her lies have hurt him and their family. Is my interpretation of this.
Okay, I can see it.
That there's some, he is aware that like the things that she is saying is not lining up with his actual experience, and these lies are the same ones she was telling that got him in this. I think that's
the
that's
first
what I
thing
was
he
getting
says is Nadine, which to me says he remembers that something here was not matching up.
And like the disappointment and the hurt when he says my wife, and that was in response to her essentially trying to say, oh no, you shocked yourself trying to do the wires and it was an accident and all that. Like there's something to that, his reaction, where he is dismayed that this is still happening. I could be wrong, because this is all just me. I thought this was a fantastic scene, and that guy did a heroic acting performance with what he was given. And it's just sad, man.
It reminds me of like a zombie lurching toward you saying brains, right? All he can do is speak in one word, and they were the zombie hunters, and they finally got the zombie, and now like Wayne is an actual zombie. It's I think it's really kind of hilarious in one way and very sad in the other.
Yeah. There is some definitely humor in the performance at the beginning, but it's pretty pathos by the end, I thought.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Her, like, assisting him to cuddle her was oof.
And this is, also the scene where the guy's shouting about getting his enema, and, like, there's a lot of comedy there, too.
Is that was tickling my brain like it was a direct reference to a Coen Brothers situation, but I didn't see anybody talking about it on the Fargo V subreddit, and... yeah, it just seemed like very specific dialogue of this guy. But it's interesting because, what did Dot say about it? It's like some people don't know how to wait their turn. I mean, I don't know. If you're getting your 6 feet of your intestines removed tomorrow, if a surgery is going to save you from cancer particularly, I'd be a little worried about my enema too.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's timing that needs to happen here. And if you're a couple hours late, you might not be able to get your operation.
Yeah, there's something about like Dot blowing off this guy's very real concerns versus how she's addressing her, or how she's like addressing her concerns and like put and her kind of delusions are putting her family at risk. There's something interesting there. I don't quite have my hands on it.
Yeah.
Can't quite get my hands around that 6 feet of intestine and what it means. It's slippery.
Oh yeah. So the FBI agents go to their boss and tell him what they know about Roy Tillman's nefarious activities. They want to send Roy a message to respect the law. And their boss encourages him to think one step ahead by asking what happens next when they go to war with Roy. One of the agents is disappointed that his boss isn't upholding his duties, but that is quickly overridden by the news that Nadine has been found.
Do you think the agent here is jumping to a bit of a conclusion that his boss agrees with Roy?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not 100% sympathetic to what the boss says in this scene, but I think,
Agreed.
yes, it is smart to think one step ahead. The consequences of your actions need to be thought out before you take those actions.
And it also, these agents, like, well, if he's doing these things, then do the police work, make the case, get a charge. Right now, you're just being like, I think. I'm seeing a whole bunch of fishy stuff here, and I think it's fishy.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy coming and being like, oh, well, you're on his side. I thought that was kind of a wild thing to accuse your boss of. But
yeah. I mean, it could be, there's a lot of discussion now about various injustices within a lot of our systems in society, and I think a lot of people jump to the conclusion that, well, we should just smash all that, right? We should just grab the things that are wrong with it and pull them out.
Take a great leap forward, you'd say?
Sure, why not? And I think those people might be like the FBI agents here, who have not thought the one step ahead. What do we put in place of it? The power vacuum. Once that's created, what happens then?
Yeah,
and it's a reckless attitude, I guess. Though I'm largely sympathetic to that idea. Like, yes, when you see injustice and you see wrongs being committed, take a fucking sledgehammer to those things, because those are a poison to the system that they're in. But at the same time, if you just take a sledgehammer to everything you see, you're eventually not going to have anything. So,
yeah, it's the reason that France has had 5 republics, is because there was a lot of leaping before looking done,
sure,
in the zeal to smash oppressive systems. But it's like, if you're living under one of those things, like being told be patient, wait for the process to work through itself, like that's that's the agent's frustration here. It's like, well, we know there's wrong shit going on. Let's just jump in there and. But that's I mean, their boss is like reading from the little black book on communism. Mao killed anywhere between 15 million at minimum to up to 50 million Chinese just with bad economic policy.
Mm-hmm.
The sparrows are eating our grain. Kill all the sparrows. Now you got
all the locusts eating our grain. Yeah.
Yeah, you got a trillion locusts instead of a billion sparrows. So. And I thought it's like, but also like zoom out. It's like, so what is he saying? That the state of North Dakota is a finely tuned house of criminal cards that you start kicking. I mean, it might literally be true, but that's a hell of a thing to say about a sovereign state in America.
It feels a little defeatist to me. Like, well, this is the way our system is, and it's this finely tuned machine, and we don't want to break it, so that's just how it's going to have to be.
Eventually Elliot Ness has to go into Chicago and make Al Capone stop selling liquor, or else what's the point of laws? Like, that's probably going to make a lot of blood in the streets flow and a lot of violence and stuff, but like, it's either that or it's to say, well, fuck it, we'll let the criminals run this area of the country because it's a backwater like Tatooine, and the Republic just doesn't stretch that far,
Yeah, I mean, ideally you'll have plans, if you're gonna tear down the house, you'll have plans to build a new one before you tear down the house, but...
Yeah, secure the construction site, make sure it gets built up right this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a tough question, and I think, like, scenes like this do illustrate that. I'm not all on one side of this thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's
I
why
just
it's
think
so
the
hard to
FBI
fix a lot of things, is because it is complicated.
And if things are that fucked up, it should be relatively easy to uncover the malfeasance. So
Sure.
Mulder and Scully, get busy finding the truth out there.
Unless
Just
you're just doing it as
bitching
a
to
hobby. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. The more troubling thing I think he's saying here is don't bother with it. Make it a hobby. Like, you work on this on your own time, but right now we need you doing other things, catching the real bad guys, right?
That definitely is the closest to feeling like he is trying to cover for Roy, for sure.
Right. Yeah. He doesn't quite take them off the case, but he might as well have.
Mm-hmm.
I found it funny that Odin's last name is Little. I don't know. It feels like he's they're trying to strike a balance there with this guy's name.
Yeah. This mighty Norse god. Itty bitty surname.
Yeah. Also, they describe Nadine as the second wife.
Yeah. Is Roy a was it bigamist? Polygamist?
Polygamist? I think it's polygamist, yeah. That's what that implied to me, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. I wonder what happened to the first one. Or
I mean, the
did
first
they both
one
get
might
married?
still be his wife, his current wife.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that might be interesting.
I don't know if Roy was living a double life, like he had the two families, or if they were all living together and this was like just polygamy.
The
out in
remote
open.
compound suggests they might have, and he's got he's got a church on that property. It wouldn't surprise me that there's like another house and that he just kind of like, this is my Monday wife, Tuesday wife. I don't know.
I mean, I guess my question is, did they know about each other, the wives?
Good
It
question.
almost seems like they would have to if they were
I would
living on the
think
ranch
so.
together.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Like in this type of, like, this isn't the guy that's having a secret family on the other coast. This is a
Right.
guy who's like getting off and having his light up fetish box. I think the women knowing about it is part of the kink.
Probably.
You know?
Speaking of kinks,
Fucking hell.
old Munch sitting in the tub talking about the cost of freedom. It's always death. That's how I get off. He explains to, I'm going to call her Mama, that it's either him or her. It's dog eat dog. And she asks why he's here, what he wants, and he replies, pancakes. It's a funny end to the scene.
Any connection between Nadine's Bisquick, or I guess, are we calling her Nadine or Dot? I guess
I call
Dot
her
is her
Dot.
chosen name. I'm going to go with Dot. It's more Wizard of Oz that way, too. You got Dorothy.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a connection between the Bisquick, prominent Bisquick product placement, and him desiring pancakes?
Ooh.
Is she going to be able to soothe the beast with pancakes?
That's a really good question. I hadn't thought about it.
They're going to be tough and rubbery. It's going to be a tough sell, but,
Yeah.
you know.
Huh. I don't know what they're getting at with that. But I'll think about it.
He mentioned that only kings have the privilege of having wants, that the common man needs to content himself with just being free of death, free of hunger for one day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
When, quote unquote, Mama asks him what he wants and he responds with pancakes, is this him becoming a king himself? Because he's now has want. And then the way he delivered that is like,
Yeah.
it felt to me like the first time anyone asked him what he wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He wants pancakes. He's royalty now.
I wonder if he sees it that way. Because that
He
is
sees
sort of
it
the
something,
implication of
'cause
the dialogue.
There's like a transformation of his character when she said that his whole countenance changed.
Is he realizing
there
he
wasn't-
could be a king, whereas before he never even
Yeah.
considered the idea?
Yeah, and I don't think that this lady's not asking it in like any kind of motherly way. She's kind of like, "You're a madman. What do you want? Why are you here?" But the way he's perceiving it, I thought was interesting.
And when he says it's either me or you, he's not literally telling this old woman, "I'm going to kill you." This is a more generalized, like I said, dog eat dog kind of thing.
And I like this because this is the antithesis to Roy. Is like, well, if I have to tell you what freedom means, it ain't gonna mean much, because freedom can mean a whole lot of things, depending on where you're at in the hierarchy of needs. It can, freedom can be the freedom to blow your hand off because you got to, fireworks out of state. It can be the freedom to not have to worry about the huge medical bill that you're going to have to pay if you blow your fingers off. Did you have to think about, like, oh my God, what if I get in a terrible accident and I can't provide for my family? Because that's going to happen to everybody, so we might as well take care of it. Like, there's lots of different ways of freedoms, and there's just checks and balances.
And the way that some people twist that definition. The thing that really stood out to me in this dialogue is how some people decide that if they can't have what they want, they're not free.
Right.
And they're once
all the time.
Yeah, right. They've told themselves that they're kings, and everything they want they call their own, and when they can't get it, they call that they say they're not free. And you contrast that to the people who are never able to even contemplate freedom because they can't have even desires, right? Yeah, it paints this picture of the extremely wealthy complaining as being crybabies. You have so much, so many other people have so little, and you're claiming that you are oppressed because you simply can't have the thing you want.
Or you're being asked
all
to do
the time.
some small thing for the community.
Right. Make some small sacrifice. Pay for your freedom.
Right.
But you don't want to do that.
Yeah, it's a good soliloquy, even though it was given by a guy completely encrusted in shit, blood, and mud. Interesting words coming out of his mouth.
Yeah, absolutely. And
what did you make of John Hamm seething? Like, they kept cutting back to him. He's clearly the man who has set himself up to be a king.
Mm-hmm.
He's equal with the King of Kings, and his face is just like he is seething that he can't have the thing he wants, Nadine.
Yeah, his second wife. Now that we've found that out, he is the described king in this, right? The man who's appointed himself king and is crying because he can't have everything he wants.
Yep,
that's exactly what I was getting from that. Okay, let's go to Gator, who gets back to the ranch, finds that old Munch has been and gone, and sending a message, and he asks where Roy is. And then we go over to Roy, who's visiting the guy who was beating on his wife in a previous episode to check up on that situation. Doesn't like what he sees. The guy pulls a gun on him, but Roy gets the first shot off, killing him just as Gator arrives. And then they get their story straight with the wife, or I guess widow at this point. And then Roy goes for a ride on a horse into the sunset.
Absolute incredible sunset.
Mm-hmm.
A+ cinematography there. I thought it was interesting that you can kind of, like, you squint and you see the firelight on Nadine's face. It's like the sunrise and, with the structure fire, the house. And then
okay.
At the end there, Roy riding off into the sunset. It's a nice little kind of a bookend.
Yeah.
And what is firelight except for a sudden release of the sun's stored energy that a tree spent its lifetime, storing up within itself?
The sun is made of fire, man.
Damn straight. That's all I'm saying. The sun's just a big campfire in space.
Uh-huh.
I thought this scene this is a nice piece of world building, that it really throws in. If you would be deluded into thinking that Roy enforces the laws purely for his citizens' benefit, he's setting up this young man and he's killing them, and then he's making his widow an accomplice.
Mm-hmm.
He's bringing her into the conspiracy. It's like, aren't you glad I took care of this problem for you? Aren't you glad that I'm going to continue to care for you and give you money because you're my friend and we're friends, right? And it's also badass. Like, that's like just in the way it works with Raylan Givens. Like, it's always fucking impressive when someone lets someone get the drop on them, pulls the gun out, and is confident enough to be like, I can pull my gun and put one through you before you can even twitch your finger.
Mm-hmm.
And I rewind because, like, how did they do that? How did they get John Hamm to do that thing? And it's like less than a quarter second, and it looks like it's a simultaneous shot, and he gets the better of it. And the fact that he's like Brad Pitt and Ad Astra. There's nothing about his countenance when Gator rushes in that betrays that he was in a gunfight.
Yeah, he's just cool, calm, collected. It's a hell of a scene. I mean, John Hamm does an amazing job in this scene. I despise his character at this point,
yes.
But also, well, okay, so I despise both of these guys and maybe equally. I'm not sure. But one of them is beating his wife. That's not okay, man. The other one is meting out justice the way that he sees fit outside of the law. That's also not okay, man. So both of these characters are pretty reprehensible, but it's still like I still think it's a cool scene. You know?
Yeah, John Hamm is riveting to watch in this scene.
Absolutely.
And it makes me that's why I was going like the tone of this character, it seems to me like it would have been better to have him be deadly serious or to have him be more of a buffoon, but it's kind of rough. It's like, where was this guy when he's sitting in the tub and showing his dick and gotten his pierced nipples out, and like
it's the pierced nipples that
like I said, they're doing either too much or too little, and I wish they had kind of gone with like a very deadly serious take on like this wild kind of form of absolute patriarchy that they're practicing out there. Just like just don't put any lipstick on that pig, like Roy says.
Yeah, it doesn't need it.
But I don't know. Maybe this thing turns into a real knee slapper in the back half, because I'm still looking for like where. I had one guy email me. He's like, "Well, I don't understand why you had all the expectations. I didn't watch any trailers and all that stuff." And well, that's great, but part of our job is to do these season previews. And I honestly, as private citizen A.Ron, would never watch a trailer. I didn't used to. I just like, oh, that seems like an interesting project. It's got a cool pedigree or a cool concept. I'll just go into it blind, because that's the best way to go into it. I'm doing podcast, so it's like. It's not my fault that Noah Hawley says this is going to be more of a comedic romp along the line, like a black comedy romp along the lines of the first Fargo. Like, I got those expectations fairly, and it's taken a little bit of while to me to shift my mental transmission into a different gear.
I'm with you.
And I do question, if it's this deadly serious, why the little haha, the pierced nipples, haha, the light up dildo box or whatever. Like, but I don't know. Honestly, some of my least favorite Coen Brothers works are stuff like that, like Burn After Reading, where it's just like deadly serious, but then slapstick out of nowhere.
Yeah,
that's historically hard for me to ride that, and if Holly likes that, it's just going to be. All I can be is honest about my biases, so you guys, can kind of like, oh, A.Ron's talking out of his ass there, and I don't agree because blah blah blah.
One of the things I noticed in this scene, he's talking about how Joshua was one of the good ones. And his definition of good one is super interesting and seems very self-interested. Because he also equates, I can't remember if it's his grandfather, his great-grandfather, whoever in his family tree here, as one of the good ones. But he starts off by calling him an Indian killer. And in my mind, that does not make you, quote, one of the good ones. Is this another instance of somebody creating their own reality here? The fiction, that the things that happened in that period are somehow good, or is this just showing the difference in opinion and views?
Well, it's definitely going to something that it's not just a single person rejecting reality. That's kind of like, the fact that this guy got medals of honor for his actions of the
country rewarded him for that.
And I read up on this battle of the Badlands. It's a pretty sad affair where, like, essentially the Native Americans were doing kind of a running retreat and trying to regroup to another area, and they're just kind of being harassed by a unit that outnumbered them 2-1. And there was some resistance, but it was like it was described as desultory, like they would every once in a while they'd be able to corner a part of the Native Americans on a particular ridge, and they'd rain some arrows down, and then they'd shoot the cannons, and then they'd run off. But this is like a big battle in his mind, but more to the fact that all of America was kind of not. However, there's always been some people in history being like, that ain't right. But broadly speaking, all of America was on board with, like, those boys are doing God's work out there. Manifest destiny from.
They were the kings.
From sea to shining sea. Yeah.
Like, ironically, the people coming over here to America to found this country without a king were the kings trying to claim the thing that they wanted for their freedom.
And this country's full of godless heathens that at best are potential Christians in the future. But that's like that was a not real look on the world, but it's something that it wasn't just like one person sharing; it was shared by an entire nation of people. So maybe that's what they're going with it.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're bringing, the FBI and things into this, you're starting to get to the country, not just individuals within it.
And what are our shared delusions that we're, in the country now? The fact that, like, poor people are just morally bad. They're just, they shouldn't spend so much money, shouldn't get in debt, shouldn't get their finger degloved at their job. Like, what are the delusions that we're suffering under? That's 100 years from now going to be morally repugnant. The way the debt prisons were 150 years ago. Like, oh, you can't pay your debt? Well, that's illegal. You got to go to jail.
It's the thing we didn't talk about in Lorraine's speech to this reporter. She starts out with, it starts as an itch, right? Maybe you want a new pair of shoes. But then she switches immediately from that to something that you have no control over and can't be helped.
Yeah.
The car
and who put
down.
that? Yeah, the medical bill.
She's
and
equating the two things, and that's not at all equatable.
And the same system that she's in the debt collection is the other end of that is the marketing teams that are generating that false need to get the things and making you feel like you're not part of the community if you don't have those things. It's pumping you from both ends. It's putting you on a treadmill that you will find your level of broke to be in this country, and most people will silo into that.
Yeah, so I don't know. He's trying to expose some fallacy within all of our belief systems here that I think is coming to light. I don't want to say this is on like the forefront of, Fargo season 5 is going to be the thing that cracks the case on what's wrong with this country. We're coming to these ideas, and Fargo season 5 seems to be a reflection of the things that we are feeling right now.
Sure, which makes it super frustrating, right?
Sure, yeah. Like maybe episode 10, we'll get the big grand finale that'll tell us how all this is supposed to go. But
it's like when I used to work at IT and we were having a massive problem, and like the 13th person that came into the data center is like, is anyone else having problems logging in? It's like, yeah, no fucking shit. Yeah,
on it right now.
Do you see the smoke rolling out of that room? It's like it's like there's nothing wrong with being that person, but it sometimes can grate,
Yeah, and I mean, I think it provides a sense of urgency to have this message, piled on. I think it does help, If one person comes to you and says the server's on fire, you're like, I'll get to it when I can.
Right.
Nobody else has complained about it. If 13 people come to you and say it, well, now you got to do something about it, because otherwise you're going to lose your job.
The number and volume of the complaints definitely spur action.
Yeah. So this is one for the pile, I guess. But yeah, that's the end of the episode.
Well, it's not the end of the podcast because we got some feedback. Fargo at baldmove.com is how you send it in. And before we get to feedback, just a note, if you would like to know the other things that we're doing, because we have, oh my gosh, so many podcasts about movies, about TV, all kinds of stuff. All of our social medias are at baldmove except for TikTok. We're at baldestmove there. And if you'd like to support us in what we're doing, help us keep making podcasts, get some nice things for yourself, ad-free feeds, extra bonus audio content. Support.baldmove.com is how you help us continue our mission to cover all the television. Fargo at baldmove.com is what we're talking about now. First up, A.Ron K says, besides the obvious Coen brothers inspirations, I'm pretty sure Holly is very inspired by the writings of Japanese author Haruki Murakami. I'm familiar with this gentleman from the Maiden Heights song that is a banger, and it slaps. I've seen Murakami's books and video interviews from Holly's home and see similarities in the stories Holly writes. Books like Kafka on the Shore, 1Q84, and the Wind-Up Bird Chronicles have all relatively grounded stories with occasional elements of the supernatural or surreal seeping into it. Murakami inserts these moments seemingly at random, but eventually you see thematically how they fit, and it's often open to interpretation if it's even real. Malvo, Hanzi, Varga, Mayflower, and now Munch would all be right at home in a Murakami novel. Yeah, fair enough, and yeah. It's just like I said, it's not my favorite thing.
You're allowed to do things that I'm not necessarily feeling on TV.
Yeah. Justin says, something that strikes me after 4 episodes and listening to you guys and reading what Holly said about using The Nightmare Before Christmas is how much the in-between or liminal space is explored in this season because of Holly's use of 2 things at once. According to Holly, he's using The Nightmare Before Christmas because it's sort of a personal choice for a movie that we love in my house, and it manages to be both a Christmas and Halloween movie. You can watch it twice a year if you want to. And I knew I wanted to enter Dot's story or center Dot's story around Halloween because of what it affords her in defending her home and the costumes, because they can literally wear bulletproof vests and be zombie killers. Mm-hmm. Furthermore, it explains Gator is a Jack Skellington type because Jack is someone who, much like Joe Keery's character, is trying to be something he's not, which is an evil, scary dude when really he's just a softie. It seems as if Holly is dancing around his use of film as a way to represent the in-between. Jack Skellington literally walks to a place where he can enter all holidays, a place between places. Roy Tillman operates in this sort of same space. He kills the guy at the end of episode 4 to close a loop for the local law enforcement to appease that world so he can get back to his own one in which he is the supreme leader, a reflection of the two Americas. Dot herself is two people and can freely switch between the two as needed. Old Munch would be a multi-generational specter linking the old times with the new. Lorraine Lyon's profession is a deliberate choice between being an in-between for credit card companies and others who have written off debt. And of course, we always have Indira and Wit, as well as Jaqueen and Mrs. Jaqueen, the natural good forces caught in between what is true and good versus the wrong. So my Agent Joaquin, and I forget Miss Joaquin's name. At the end, I'll end with Danish, what he says in the hospital. With all due respect, we've got our own reality. This notion of two things at once and those who can operate in between is all over this, and I'm so interested in where that lands. I thought it was an interesting take on what's going on here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we didn't really talk about, the sort of cover-up operation that Roy has going at the end of this episode. He's dual purposing this, right? He's getting rid of somewhat evil, as he would describe it, and also using this as a way to, like you said, close the loop on old Munch.
It feels like the FBI is wise to that, though. A little too convenient, yeah. Too many conveniently closed things based on only things that the Stark County sheriffs can verify. But we'll see. Scott from Pittsburgh says, as an electrical engineer, I wanted to weigh in on the reality of Wayne getting shocked. Dot laid out her electrical trap by putting two exposed copper wires, hot and neutral, parallel to each other with a small gap in between. The end of these wires is plugged into a household 120-volt alternating current outlet. Something conductive, in this case a hand, bridges the gap between the wires. It creates a short that delivers current based on how conductive the thing to bridge the gap is. Human skin, normally not that conductive, and dry winter skin, magnitudes less so. Electricity wants to take the path of least resistance, so Wayne would have felt a startling shock in his hands, but because the current is alternating and not direct, it would not cause a muscle contraction that would cause him to clamp down and be unable to go. While it makes for good TV, if anyone listening needs to make a heroic last stand in their domicile, I would recommend they follow Kevin McAllister's example in Home Alone 2. Direct current car battery rigged to dual faucet handles, one in one hand and out the other, is much more likely to be incapacitating or lethal. Dot's approach, just piss off your assailants. So there you go. There you go.
What if it's
rig up that car battery?
No change.
Well, he actually talks about this. I skipped a paragraph where he's talking about the level of spice difference between 120 volts and 240. I've shocked myself being a handyman on 120 innumerable amounts of time. I've never done 240, but he's taken 240 in one hand and out the other, and which means it probably arced through his heart, and he goes, "Why, it scared the shit out of me. I was completely fine a moment later." And again, if I know anything about electricity, it's all about your current level of resistance. Like if you are wearing the wrong clothes or your hands are sweaty or wet, like maybe I would imagine Wayne's hands could be wet. I imagine his hands could be sweaty.
Yeah,
because that's a scary ass situation.
Yeah, no. The thing that scares me about that is the inability to let go of a live wire. That's terrifying. If there's nobody there to end that current, it will end you.
Is that true with alternating current? I thought that was the whole thing, that alternating like pulsed, so it wouldn't like completely get you like that.
Yeah, it might not be true about AC. I don't know.
Well, like I said,
I'm no
careful on
electrical
electricity.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to go with a quality security system. Judah says in the scene in episode 2 where his partner is killed, Gator's eating jerky, and when he's in the evidence locker in episode 3, he leaves behind a Slim Jim, notably scenes dealing with either already dead or dying characters. Do you think this is drawing any parallels between Gator and a Sin Eater eating food from the body of a corpse? And if so, what point do you think Holly is trying to make? With how this show is, I can't tell if this is me just grasping at straws, or if there's truly something to be gleaned from this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, The Godfather made that connection with oranges, right? Oranges equals impending death. Maybe he's doing something with beef jerky.
Yeah.
Maybe he's doing something
Slim
with the sin
Jim
eating.
does in real life equal impending death. You eat enough of them. But I don't know if they're doing that.
It would be interesting if Gator, like, somehow, if he gets to drop on Old Munch and kills him, if he is forced to become a Sin Eater. I mean, if I'm open my mind up to supernatural things, and that would also be an interesting, different arc for his character to bend on. Yeah, I don't know. It's I'm gonna be paying attention to what he's eating and what he's laying down in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Got my eye on that, Judah. John G says, since you claim the Coens featured supernatural elements in maybe 5% of their work, I wanted to count them just for the record. Here are all the Coen brothers films that feature some kind of supernatural or extraterrestrial element. In his estimation, Raising Arizona, Barton Fink, Hudsucker Proxy, Oh Brother Where Art Thou, The Man Who Wasn't There, and A Serious Man contain supernatural elements or the hints of the supernatural. They are fascinated by stories where ordinary people are confronted by chance, a bag of money, or some potentially life-changing dream come true opportunity, but one is definitely dangerous and unethical, and when they go after a thing, it unleashes some kind of malevolent force. This is what I love so much about the Coen style. Life's confusing, and you don't really get answers. There's not actually a God, but you'll probably still get punished for your sins anyway. I think this theme is something Noah Hawley understands in exploring his adaptations of their work. To really get at the theme, I think the supernatural elements are... I think the supernatural elements need to be there, and that's why they are there, not because Noah Hawley just happens to like those elements and is highlighting them because, despite not being represented the full Coen work, because they actually are. I mean, like I said, you're not wrong, but it is not my favorite flavor. I don't think it's Jim's favorite flavor. And it would be nice for one season to not have that. But Noah Hawley's not my bitch, man. He can do whatever he wants, and I can like it or not.
It was really the expectation versus the reality, I guess, is my big problem. Because I do love Fargo. I do love The Big Lebowski. And I was kind of promised that via trailers this season. And so to see that is kind of a... I don't want to say an afterthought this season, but it is a small portion of what Holly's trying to do this season. It was a little disappointing to me. But like I said, I'm also easing my way toward the other side of this, thinking, okay, I could maybe get into this if it doesn't go overboard with the supernatural.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same place. I'm not, hey guys, this is a lot early on. That's the other thing, is like, I think this is the earliest this kind of stuff has ever been this kind of explicit.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not ruling it out being good. It's just, but I do say that, like, the more the plots hinge on supernatural events occurring, the more I get like, okay, I'm no longer like really engaging with the material. Finally, we have Rai Rai, who says, I was listening to your coverage of episode 3 and you mentioned something about Gator potentially having a change of heart and trying to subvert his evilness to do something good. Now, it's been a while since I've seen Stranger Things, but I remember Joe Crear's character Steve was a total dung bucket at first and by the end was a fan favorite. I wonder if his casting is further evidence that the heel to face turn. Yeah, we didn't talk about that too, but that when Dot says, shame on you, Gator, there's a bit like she expected better from him. Like, you know, and I want to say at one point he was more of a heroic figure as a quarterback, but then he had that racist story about hurting the black kid that, you know, hurt him playing ball. And yeah, I maybe there was something tender about him as a child, and Roy's tried to stamp it out, and maybe that thing can be fanned back. But the more the story goes on, the more skeptical I'm getting of the Jack Skeleton kind of anti-hero aspect of him.
But so much of the macho bullshit that's happening with him seems to be affected by him, not inherent to who he is. So I could see it, that mask slipping at some point and him being revealed for like a hero straight up. And I got to say, I really love Joe Keery. I think I'm kind of rooting for that outcome because I want to like him. And I hope I see him a lot of future things because, man, he's good.
Yeah, I do like him. I like him a lot. And you definitely, when you see him roll in to back up his dad when the gunshots go off, he's scared to death. As much as he talks that he wants, and he was a lot more in control of that, Nadine situation until she started actually shooting, and he started, oh my God, this isn't like a 5 foot nothing, 100-pound soaking wet. Well, this is a tiger I'm dealing with. Yeah, we see that softness that he has to work himself up into kind of a fervor to do his dad's dirty work. And
I mean, he has to literally plaster his walls with reminders that he's that guy. Otherwise, he might forget it. Yeah.
And his ears have to be full of hyper aggressive music and no, he's I'm amazed he doesn't sleep on a bed of nails, because he can get the other senses engaged at being hard.
Yeah, I bet he takes cold showers though. Cold showers.
Definitely. I don't think Roy has a hot water heater in that house. Maybe for the girls,
just outside.
Maybe there's an on. Oh, you're right. He's got that. But there's an on-demand hot water thing for the girls. But that's the only one that gets those creature comforts. Not the men of the house. All right, that's going to do it for this week, this coverage of Fargo. We will see what happens next week when we return. Fargo@baldmove.com, again, is how you send us feedback. @baldmove everywhere for social media. TikTok, we're @baldestmove. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Until then, I'm your host, A.Ron.
And I'm Jim.
See ya.